Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to have a kind of a bit of a discussion later on. But before I do that, the first half, I just kind of wanted to give a brief explanation. Today, the chant that we did was the second half of what's called the Gotoku Zuigen that we did 2 weeks before. I think there was a Gotanye that got kind of in the process of that. So. This chant, though, however, is not really done too much in BCA weekly services, at least not from my experience and not from what I have seen. I've mentioned this before, but the Jusege and the Sambutsuge, two sutras that we often chant on our weekly services, are actually excerpts of what's found in the larger sutra. Okay, the larger sutra is the name, actually has a longer name. It's called the Sutra of Immeasurable Life, but let's call it the larger sutra to make things easier. There are three Pure Land sutras that are known to be the kind of basis for the doctrine of Pure Land Buddhism. And the first one is larger sutra. And then the second one is the smaller sutra, or it's also known as the Amida Kyo. And so you might have read this during like memorial services, or we do it here in our weekly services too as well, the Amida Kyo. That's the second one. And then the third one is the Contemplation Sutra. Okay, so that's the other one. The Meditation Sutra is another name of it. Contemplation Sutra, Busetsu Kanmuryo Jikyo. Okay, so these are the three kind of sutras that there are. I don't know if you've ever been to a betsuing or a large temple, but if you look in the onaijin in the very middle, sometimes you see these scrolls there that are standing upright. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there in the right in the center. So there are actually four scrolls, but the larger sutra is a long sutra, so it takes up two scrolls, and then the smaller sutra, and then the Contemplation Sutra. So there are four scrolls that are kind of upright in this rack, right in the middle of the onaijin. So that's what that would be signifying. So the section of the Gotoku Zuigen is translated as 5 virtues manifested by Shakyamuni Buddha. So just once again to reiterate, Ananda, who is kind of like the chief disciple of Shakyamuni, one day looks at the Buddha, Shakyamuni, and Shakyamuni Buddha is in what's called Nembutsu meditation, Nembutsu Samadhi, okay? And so during this time, Shakyamuni Buddha's mind is one with Amida Buddha's mind in this samadhi, in this meditation. And so as a result of that, Shakyamuni's radiance is glowing. He has this very serene look on him. So Ananda kind of looks at him and he says, "Oh, Shakyamuni, what's going on today? You know, why do you look so splendid today? Why do you look so serene and so tranquil today?" Right? And then so Shakyamuni Buddha then goes on to expound the story of the larger, what later became known as the larger sutra, the story of Amida Buddha. And when Shinai Shonin, then our founder of this school, read this sutra, the larger sutra, he found that this was the most important reason why Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in this world. Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in this world to deliver the story of Amida Buddha. And why is that important? It's important because Amida Buddha expounds the story or the message of the Nembutsu, the message that there is a path to spiritual liberation for all sentient beings, even for those who are afflicted with blind passions, which would be us, those who are caught in the world of delusion. I will bring them out of the world of suffering through the Nembutsu, the teaching of the Nembutsu. And this is what Shinran saw in the larger sutra, and that is why he based the entire doctrine of Jodo Shinshu on the larger sutra. And so that's kind of the basis for why we are doing this, and why I would like to kind of incorporate this teaching or this chant into our weekly services. There will be others, and when that comes up, I will give a brief explanation as to why we are doing that. And just a little side tidbit of what those 5 virtues are. So number one is So just to read my little thing here, Shakyamuni exhibited 5 distinct features according to Ananda. Number 1, the world honored one abides in the most rare and wondrous Dharma. Number 2, the world hero. This is referring to Shakyamuni. The world hero abides where all Buddhas abide. Number 3, the world's eye, also talking about Shakyamuni, abides in the activity of guide and teacher. Number 4, the preeminent one, yes, Shakyamuni, abides in supreme enlightenment. And then number 5, the heaven honored one puts into practice the virtue of all the Tathagatas. So basically saying, Shakyamuni, you look great today. What is going on today? That's basically those 5 virtues in a nutshell. But that is kind of the significance of Gotoku Zuigen and this section and why we are chanting this sutra. Sure.
I knew that we should not offer, flowers with thorns. I knew that, but you said vines. Did you say vines? And
yeah.
I don't understand, what.
So vines are kind of invasive, and when they grow, they kind of they take over. And so that's the reason why. So things that are poisonous and things that are kind of invasive are what we like to stay away from. And so that would be the reason why.
Okay, I've never, I never knew that. And
yeah. I mean, it wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't really be told that, because when are you going to put vines? That's very rare that you would do that. So that's probably why it didn't get mentioned. But I mean, as a general rule of thumb that we were taught when we go through ordination, they explain that to us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome. So I see one question here in the comments here by Betty. Are sutras mainly storytelling or reminders about the teachings of the Buddha? So sutra comes from the word shutara, and shutara is it's a string that connects the different teachings together. So the sutras are the words of Shakyamuni Buddha and the stories that he told, the explanations that he gave to his disciples. The problem is that during the time that he was alive, nothing was written. It was an oral tradition during that time, as was customary for the culture at that time, to be nothing to be written. And so everything was orally transmitted. And this isn't to say that that it was not efficient. They were very efficient, and they had various patterns of how to kind of orally transmit the teachings correctly. And there were teachers that kind of sat with the student and then taught this to the students, and the students would have to say it back to them, and then they would confirm that, right? And so this is, I suspect, why the teacher-student transmission is very important in Buddhism, right? Because we see that connection between teacher and student, and that passing on from generation to generation. So where was I going with this? So they are the teachings of Shakyamuni. And after about 600 years or so, after his passing, the assembly of Buddhist disciples got together and said, we should probably write this down. So they started writing the stuff down. And these became the sutras of what we know of today, the Buddhist canon, we call it. And so it is said that the Buddha has taught 84,000 different kinds of teachings. 84,000. And the reason for this is because based on what the group needed to hear, the Buddha changed his teachings, right? He adjusted his teaching, basically reading the crowd each time he saw the group. And so students would hear all these different teachings. And this is why we have what's called the 84,000 different teachings, a vast array of teachings, right? And then out of the 84,000, what started happening was there are certain groups of people who said, okay, this part is the most important of what he wanted to say. Everything else was to lead up to this final story that he wanted to give. And then another group of people would say, no, it's this part that he wanted to say. And that was actually this part. It was a stepping stone to what he really wanted to say, which is right here. And this is where we started to get differing opinions and differing schools of Buddhism. And that's basically the development of the different traditions of Buddhism. Okay. So for example, Tendai Shu, right, Nichiren Shu, they center their teaching on the Lotus Sutra. They believe that the Lotus Sutra, Hokekyo, is the most important central teaching, right? Everything leads up to hokekyo, right? And then Nichiren Shonin, he says that the myogo, it's not called the myogo. Daimoku, it's Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is the most important phrase of the Lotus Sutra, and so he centers his teaching based on the Lotus Sutra. And of course, we're going back to the Jodo Shinshu tradition, or even Jodoshu tradition, right? It's based on the three Pure Land Sutras. Okay. So then sometimes I get a question of what's the difference between Shinran and Honen? Well, one key difference between Shinran Shonin and Honen Shonin is that Honen Shonin of the three Pure Land Sutras that I listed places the most importance on the Contemplation Sutra. The Contemplation Sutra. And the reason for that is because in the Contemplation Sutra, in the very end, it says, say the Nembutsu, say the Nembutsu, and that's what's most key, right? Whereas for Shinran, the larger sutra talks about the Nembutsu saving or liberating all sentient beings, and that is the most important. So it's a very slight technical difference, but that's one kind of key difference between the two teachers. Okay.
Sensei, how do you choose the sutras outside of the ones that we normally do for major services? Because we've been able to hear some different ones that
basically it's just, it's like kind of like I see it as, there's all those sticks with those dishes on there and you just keep spinning them, you gotta, so it's like if we haven't done one in a while, I'd like to do that one. And it's just to kind of keep up the consistency, because after a while, if you leave one alone too long, people start to forget it. It's just like gathas too. If you leave some gathas alone too long, people start to forget it. And then before you know it, it's never even sung anymore. And so that's kind of how I go about figuring out which one to chant. There's also other issues, just kind of logistically speaking, in terms of time. Sometimes we can't get to some of the longer ones, or sometimes, sometimes a longer one is necessary, right? The Shoshinge, I mentioned this before, we did this at the Gotaen service, we did Nembutsu Wasan, but really the Nembutsu Wasan is the second half. The first half is the Shoshinge. So Shoshinge and the Nembutsu Wasan together is one set, and that's what you're supposed to do in one sitting. And that's supposed to be ideally done every morning, and the chant takes about 30 minutes, the entire chant. Just that would be difficult to do every week, so we tend to do the shorter ones during that time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. When reciting Do Hotsubo Daishin, what do you recite? Do Hotsubo Daishin. Why do you recite Do Hotsubo Daishin? Let me look at the English translation of Do Hotsubo Daishin again. Okay, so the awakening, so the translation here of the Ekoku, Terry's asking about the Ekoku, the last thing that we always recite. May this merit virtue be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken the Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of serenity and joy. So the Dohotsubo Daishin would be, may we together awaken the Bodhi mind. And so the question here is, why do you recite it? Well, it's just kind of it's basically giving an aspiration for us to hopefully attain enlightenment, and by seeking the Buddha Dharma, we can awaken to the world of enlightenment, and that is why we aspire to awaken the Bodhi mind here and now in this path. Okay, does that answer your question? I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Sensei, I meant it's written Hotsu, but you pronounce it Hon.
Okay. Yeah.
I always wondered why.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's not just there. It's in many places like Jusege, Sanbutsuge. Wherever there's a TSU, you might have seen it sometimes in brackets. What that means is that traditionally it's pronounced like it's like saying like delicious kind of thing. It's a sound. And that's just it's just custom tradition that's pronounced that way, because sometimes when the chants get really fast, for example, Amida Kyo, there's no time to say the tsu. And so it went by going you can kind of abbreviate it a little bit and go to the next sound. And so what the explanation I gave you is just one of a few different explanations, but it's basically called this kind of this switch in pronunciation is called bion. It's called the bion sound, to change from the tsu to the sound. But traditionally, back in the day, the bion sound is actually supposed to sound like more like this, and then hopefully you can, maybe I'll put the mic closer. Can you hear that? So it's almost like what we were told in ordination is say ku, the hiragana ku, in your nose. So it's through your nasal passage, say that's what the bion sound is supposed to, or is traditionally sounded like. And that when you're doing it fast, right, just becomes right. And then so that's why that kind of pattern of saying it like that has stuck and became the custom to do so. Yeah, sure. But you can pronounce it either way, tsu or either way is okay. Yeah, either way is okay. You might be wondering, another question. Oh, okay, sorry. Well, I'll take care of that. Or maybe I'll get rid of that. When chanting, when does the Sangha join sensei, and when do they stop? Usually there's like a place to that marks where the Sangha comes in, the rest of the Sangha. So ideally, there isn't any doshi or follower lay, right? It's everybody's supposed to come in together and everybody stops together, ideally, right? But that doesn't work out, realistically speaking, because someone's got to start it, and someone's got to say, hey guys, okay, we're going to begin now, right? And then someone's going to say, okay, let's stop now, right? So that's what the role of the doshi is. And so the doshi says the first line, and then kind of everybody jumps in, and that's traditionally what is supposed to take place. But that's just because of just to make it easier for everyone to follow along. Right? Another interesting thing about the Hondo, about Jodo Shinshu temples, if you go to other schools of Buddhism, if you go into the Hondo, the Onaijin is huge. It's like it takes up most of the Hondo actually. Whereas in the Jodo Shinshu temple, the Onaijin is small. It's very tiny, and the Gejin is huge. The where everybody sits is huge, and that is done intentionally. That's to show that that we are all lay and priest alike are before Amida Buddha are equal in status, or equal in the eyes of Amida Buddha. And so the Gejin should be bigger than the Onaijin is the understanding of is the Jodo Shinshu understanding. One question I wanted to get to was, you might be wondering why it's Hongguanji. Why is it spelled with a W in the Hongganji? It's pronounced Hongganji. Why is there a silent W? I mean, even in the English vernacular, there is no silent W, right? There might be a silent H, or maybe a silent J, right? In like Spanish or something like that. There is no silent W, but Hongganji does this intentionally. And the reason for that is because while Shinran Shonin was alive, the pronunciation, and even when he wrote for Honggang, primal vowel, he wrote gu wa, and that's the way that ga was pronounced back in the day. Gua was the way that it was pronounced. And so in keeping with how Shinran Shonin probably pronounced Honggang, we kept the way that it was written, and we wrote that in using the Roman letters, right? So Hongguan, GW, is the way we write Hongganji, even though the pronunciation is supposed to be Hongganji. Yeah. So yeah, I've seen sometimes people kind of forcefully say Hongguanji, but it's Hongganji. Yeah, Hongganji. The W is silent. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other kind of last questions or anything like that?
Sensei,
Yeah.
As we have our traditions here at SACBC,
Yeah.
when you venture out into the world, probably as our kids start going off to college and start finding their own way, what do you find is the that ties us together with other Buddhist temples across BCA as far as chanting wise? I know growing up for me, it was, everybody did Jusei or Junidai, but I don't know what it is across other temples that make it feel like home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So basically, I would say Jusege, Junirai, Sambutsuge, Sambujo, are the ones that probably everybody will recognize. Yeah. Sambutsuge, the Kogen Gigi, right? That's the first one that everybody will recognize. And Jusege, just because everybody hears it all the time. That's probably what everybody will recognize, whatever temple that you go to. In Japan, it would be Shoshinge. Everybody will know the Shoshinge when they hear that. And then maybe Sambutsuge is the other one that they'll understand. In terms of Gatha, Ondok-san, particularly the more lively one, the Ondok-san 2. Yeah, that's the one that everybody will tend to recognize. And the other one is Namo Amida Butsu. I think I remember singing that at a number of different temples. Yeah. When life is fair, that one. Yeah. But the Sing Namo Amida Butsu book, which we just got, Kemi Nakabayashi visited California, so she dropped off the books, and we have them now. But it's a very good book, and there are a few new songs that were introduced, and and Donna Sasaki, who is at Tacoma Buddhist Temple, was kind of instrumental in writing that Gatha book, and she incorporated a lot of the songs that she wrote into the Sunday services. And they're very good songs. Yeah. And so one of them is the one that the junior YBA sang, which is We Are One. That's one I think Donna wrote. And so hopefully those will start to take hold, and they have a nice melody. So that would be good. Yeah. Okay. I hope I answered your question. Yeah. Okay. Okay, with that, I would like to close today. Thank you very much for your questions. And then hopefully we'll be able to do this periodically. Thank you. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.